the guitar gave me the privilege to sit with powerless people in powerless situations, and all I've done is try to give those people a bit of a voice in my own little small way.
Well, it is my greatest pleasure to introduce Martyn Joseph, who we've got with us for a very special Advent 24 interview today. Martyn Joseph, if you have not been introduced to him before, then you have now, and you're welcome. Martyn is a treasure. He's been writing and performing exquisitely crafted songs for a few years now. Martyn, I can remember watching you on the eve of my 21st birthday
Yeah,
at Salford University. So which dates us a bit, takes us back about a decade, something like that.
I think
Maybe.
it's 40. It's about 40 years now. Korea
Is it?
away.
Yeah,
So yeah, so
that was probably 35 years ago, to be
yeah.
honest.
So
How are you? You've just pressed pause on your current tour, and it's been busy. How are
mm.
you? How's the tour going? How's
Oh, it's going great. Yes, I mean, I do my main British tour pre-Christmas, and then after Christmas we go into slightly bigger venues. So it's usually 18 shows each side of it. So just done 18 shows in the last month, and enjoyed them all, going very well, and the rest of it. And there's like a cycle of touring that I do. So once I finish in January, February, then I'll go to Europe, then I go to Canada, then festivals, and then I usually go to West Coast America in the sort of late autumn, October time, and that's and somehow try to make new records in the middle of that sort of thing. So it's a schedule that is familiar to me, but I'm thinking of taking a little break one of these years and just breathing a little bit, you know.
well, you would deserve. I mean, how actually is that? Because I imagine you're by and large a solo artist,
Mm.
and you're on the road for so long, 100 shows roughly a year, you were saying. So what psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, what's that like to be kind of on the move, often kind of on your own, bearing that responsibility, but surrounded so often by lots of very appreciative people and audience?
Yeah, which is the key to it. I mean, I do have a small team that roam around with me and take care of certain things, but and I'm very grateful for that. But I mean, who else does a job, Brian, where every 6 minutes you get a round of applause, or whatever it might be, and then it's just an incredible amount of feedback on the work that you do. And yes, I'm not saying that the travel doesn't grind, and an absence from things that home and all that sort of stuff isn't difficult, um but I think part of me is so used to it that it's almost part of my DNA that I sit in. This is my studio in my house, and I try to create songs that I hopefully will be of use. And the only way I find out if I've done that job is to go out and play them to people, or to release records, etc. Um, I'm not ever going to complain, other than my back, my gate, or whatever it might be. But I've also through the years developed a style where, if I ever used a band, people said you're actually better on your own. Even when I was signed to Sony, they said that they put incredible musicians with me, and they just said that something goes missing. And so um, there's a lot of responsibility in that, but at the same time, it's all kind of free and easy because it's just me. I don't have to worry about anybody else up there, in terms of whether the bass player is feeling sick today or the drummer is not in the mood or whatever it might be. It's just me, and so it's only one soul to take care of in presenting what I do.
Whenever I've seen you, it's always felt very special. Your gigs are,
Thank
and
you.
we know that, and I'm sure you know how do you how do you keep that fresh? How do you approach a night that is one night of 100
Yeah.
in a year?
Well, it's multifaceted. I I love, I always think of it as incredible privilege that people have given up an evening, spent, a certain amount of money to be there or had dinner before. And I've never lost sight of that. It really is still an extraordinary thing to me. And maybe that's a pretty decent way of looking at it rather than being facetious and arrogant enough to think that you're worthy of all this attention or whatever it might be. So there's that side of it. I feel every night. I might not feel it when I get to the venue. I might not feel it as I'm in the dressing room, but as soon as I go out there and suddenly there is that connection, I feel the weight of that, and it's a good weight. It's not a burden. But I think it's underpinned by a little boy still trying to prove himself to the world. The guitar has been everything in that sense. I'm actually a relatively shy person, which doesn't make a lot of sense, I suppose, if people see me doing what I do or even speaking now. I don't know. And the guitar was my means of being able to say, hi, here I am. I could get people's attention that way. Whereas I was not part of the in crowd in school much. I had my friends, but it wasn't part of the whatever. And so I think there is an element of that part of me thinks there are people here that have never heard what I do. And a lot of artists, and I really respect this, will allow an audience to come to them. It's a very gentle thing. They go out there and they'll just play whatever they do. It's very gentle, and I'm like, you're from that first song. I want to knock you out of, that's I want to knock it out of the ballpark. So that's just a personal thing. It's not necessarily healthy. I'm not claiming that that's a good thing, but it works on that level in that I'm never half-hearted in what I do on that stage. It's always completely committed. Whatever's happened in my day, I can put it to one side just about. I remember having one of my guitars stolen on a way to a gig down south somewhere a few years ago. The van in broad daylight. The van, it was one of the most, my treasured possessions. And part of me is thinking, how can I go on? So someone lent me a guitar, and I went on, and for that 2 hours, I was fine. I was just because I was doing my thing again. I was, so. I think that's what it is, really. And I've never, some concerts are a little bit harder than others in terms of, getting there, but we always get there in the end. And I think part of it really is that little fella still wanting to say, hi, this is me, and can I be your buddy? It's let me show you something that will make you like me. And I've never really said that publicly before, but I think that's part of it. So that's not necessarily healthy, but I've learned over the years. I don't think that every time I go on, but I think if I want to analyze it, that's what's taking place.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's fascinating, and then one of the happy results of that actually is that through the excellence, and the dedication and the commitment, there's some kind of exchange takes place in that live um, context. Are you conscious or self-conscious of that that thing that is going to happen between you and the audience?
Yeah, I'm aware. After certainly, halfway through the show that we're in a almost like what I would call a sacred space. But I felt that sacred space at a Bruce Springsteen show. It's not. I don't know if it's anything to do with belief as such, but just in a human sense that um, art has that way of reflecting the nerve ends of our souls, and music can do that. And I know that I haven't written too many "Love You Baby," "Want You Baby" songs, as So all of my songs, a lot of them are about social justice. They're about the yearnings of the heart. They're normally filled with questions, sometimes rage. I'm not necessarily offering much of an answer up there, in my opinion, but I think in someone declaring in an honest way their humanity is always a very appealing thing, and I would hope that that's what I do. I don't think I pretend in any sense. I'm committed to being as truthful as I possibly can about my life, and also about what I observe and see. And I think that brings in people, even people who can be quite skeptical, coming to a show and being dragged along, whatever it might be. The number of times people said that, I didn't think I was going to enjoy, some guy in a guitar, but that was, the most blah blah blah. And so I think it's about that, creating a relationship in the room that can actually, be almost, well, certainly changing in a sense of direction, but affirming all of those things. And I feel that every night I go out, I sense the possibility that amazing things can happen in this theater, or this cold hall tonight, whatever it might be. And I'm aware of that all the time. And so if I'm committed to that, the results can be pretty special.
Yeah, they can. And I think that I think one of the things that people will appreciate deeply is the vulnerability, is the honesty, is the lack of answers, and the holding of the questions in that way. And interesting that you talk about the little voice in your head and all of that, because I'm sure it's there, but there's a lack of ego, which I think always helps when someone is engaging with art, because you sort of step out of the way whilst you're actually still in the spotlight. Do you have a sense that songs come more fully alive in a live setting, or is it
Oh
just,
yeah,
yeah?
yeah. That's why the recording process for me is limited, because it's so final, and often you're recording songs at the beginning of their journey, and they're not finished in that sense.
Mm.
So it's like defining uh, uh, um, a, a person, as at the age of 7 or something, because songs really grow, and I work them out. Often I've recorded a whole album. By the time I've finished the tour promoting that album, those songs have evolved and changed, and I want to record that whole album all over again. So yeah, it's definitely a process that is continuous, and I'm trying to get better at that. I'm trying to feel like the song is that they're ready to go, but they're like that they have souls, and they grow, and as I sing them, I think, oh, this is a better way of delivering that line, whatever it might be. And over time, that's why people often do. Like I remember Chris Rea did an album called Old Light Through New Windows, which is a great title for redoing your work and showing it as it is now. So I can't remember your original question. Have I gone off track?
No, you haven't. It was about songs coming alive
Keeping
in
alive.
live
Yes, right.
setting,
Sorry.
and
Yes. So absolutely. That there's a big difference. I think it's because we're hearing them in a communal sense as well. You're not just sitting at home listening to your vinyl or whatever, or streaming, whatever people do, and that's a solitary thing. But I think once you're part of a community that's feeling something, and there's an atmosphere, and there's a something in the room that is making the thing broader, and more worthy, more transparent. I don't know,
yeah,
something. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
yeah.
For me, anyway.
And you touched on the songs evolving. Can you tell us something about the your process, Martyn Joseph's process, in terms of bringing songs to birth? Because I hear a song like "Let Yourself," for example, which never fails to move me when I listen to it, and opens up a space for me that literally nothing else that I've listened to or read does. It's unique. Um, is that a song that just needed to be heard? What's the relationship between, in a sense, inspiration and the craft that you put into it?
Yeah.
How does that work with you?
Well, there's no set um, there's no set rules as such. Songs. I believe that songs are all around us, like good ideas, and they're waiting for us to find them. So I have, sorry, dozens of these big thick notebooks in here, and every time like I'll suddenly think of something, I'll immediately write it down. I honestly, if you don't write it down, my belief is it goes down the road to Paul McCartney, and I want the song, right? So don't be arrogant enough not to think you'll remember the. So I think you develop this antenna that connects to your own inner soul, so that as I walk through the world, I'm listening, and I'm waiting for the next idea to arrive. And but I have learned that if I don't make some sort of note of it, then it will not be the same as it was in that moment. So um, the physicality thing of just writing something down as it comes to me. With Let Yourself, it's a quote from Rumi, the poet, and I read that and just wrote it down and then built a song around that. But I think, yeah, there is a mysterious part of it, and there is a lot of hard graft part of it. So this little idea comes, it's a mystery. What is this? Sometimes I'm just playing a guitar in here, and suddenly a little lick, and a musical idea will come, and it's the same thing. I must record that straight away because something of the nuance will. If I go out, get a cup of tea and come back, it has changed, and so I want to record it. And then I don't necessarily. I feel like I've got something there. I don't necessarily feel I have to work on it straight away, but I grab the essence of it, and then I'll come back when I've got the space, and I'll begin to work with that. Begin to work with it. What is this saying? What am I trying to do with this? And often that process will take months, years. I have songs that have taken me an awful long time to write. Um, and I always laugh when someone says, "I wrote this song in 5 minutes," as if it's a badge of honor. The chances are it's going to be not so good. Maybe it's great, but I think we we get ideas in 5 minutes, but I don't think anyone then writes this complete song, says there it is, and it's a good song. It takes time to flesh out ideas, certainly in the narratives that I'm used to constructing, rather than just a simple kind of love song or something. So it's 5% inspiration and 95% sweat, and just working, and when I do songwriting workshops and things, I'm always trying to stress this to people. No one's in any rush to hear your next sermon, your next song, your next poem. They don't go around thinking, I just can't wait to hear. They're not. So make sure when you say here is, make sure that it's the best it can be in that moment. And that takes time and hard work. So that's something of my process. Obviously, I have my own studio. I can make demos and work it through. But one of the other things that's important to me is to sing that song live, and that often changes. I will do things live that I never even dreamed of doing as I was just playing it here in my studio. Again, because the little boy's trying to prove himself, so I might do something that's just that I wouldn't, because I've got nothing to prove in here as such. It's a very complicated thing. And that ends up then, with songs, and that's, so part of it is, as I say, inspiration, yes, but graft. If people think that it's all about just sitting here and trying to get all hippie-ish and then, oh, here's the song, that certainly doesn't work for me that way anyway. Yeah.
What about the words? Because you tell stories, there's narrative, but there's poetry as well. And just a line can kill me. I was just listening to Albert's Place this morning, and just that line, "Tea and a cup of love,"
Mm.
brought a tear to my eye again. The second
Well,
time in 2 days. Tell us, can you tell us a little bit? I mean, do words come
those
naturally?
words didn't come from me as such. They came from my research. So with that song, it was this BBC commission to write a song about a soup kitchen in Sunderland, run by this amazing character called Andrea. And the BBC filmed me meeting her for the first time, and then me singing the song to her a month later. No pressure. There I did have a timetable. So, but I the way to tell or to write a song about a big subject is to find small narratives within that big subject. So with Soup Kitchen homelessness, Ralph McTell did it in the 70s, Streets of London. You know, have you seen the old man? Have you seen the old girl? These different stories. And if you tell one or two stories within a big subject, you kind of paint this picture without having to go into some sort of complicated narrative about the thing itself. So I just asked Andrea I said, tell me stories about the people that you've helped. And she described how one Sunday she went to help out at a church on Christmas Day. It was a Christmas, not a Sunday, sorry, Christmas Day, for people who had nowhere to go that day. And there was a lady that was a little ostracized. No, she was on her own. No one was by her, and she couldn't work it out. So she went over and realized that the lady had a bit of a hygiene problem, and that's why people were keeping their distance. So she made a point of spending the whole lunchtime with her and brought her food and cups of tea. And she talked to her, and at the end, she said to the lady, "Is there anything else I can get you?" And the lady held up her tea. She said, "Could I have another tea and a cup of love, please?" Right? So maybe that people might say, "Oh, that's sweet." And what else? No, tea in a cup of love. Write it down. And there, and then I didn't know that at the time, but I just wrote it down. I thought, oh, well, that's nice. Tea and a cup of love. I was gathering all this information. And then when I came back home and I looked at all these notes, that just kind of stuck out to me. It wasn't, I didn't want it to be the title of the song because it sounded a bit too sweet as such.
Yep.
Albert's Place was a tougher thing. What's that about? Make them wonder. But I thought it was a beautiful symbol of what do we say? Someone's had an accident. I'll make you a cup of tea, whatever it might be. It's a thing. Here's tea, and it's in a cup of love. I thought that was a beautiful sort of picture, and I could build a song around that, and that's what I did. I built the song around that. So that was my way in, but it didn't happen in 2 minutes or 10 minutes or an hour. It took about 2 weeks to write the song itself. In fact, I just did another. Sorry, I just did another one. They asked me to do another one this year to commemorate the RNLI. It's called Chapel Porth Beach, about two people who were on the beach with the pregnant, and they got cut off, and they said their goodbyes to each other. That song took me 3 months to write because it wasn't a song. It was a bloody film. It was a documentary.
Yeah, right.
And that one took a lot more to really, because you could easily make it sentimental. I had to put all these different factors. The RNLI, there was a mysterious surfboarder who had rung them, who's never been found. All these elements, and you've only got, Radio 2 won't play anything longer than 3.5 minutes. So, you've got to try and not make it a 8 minutes or whatever. So there's different challenges. And I suppose, acquired the skills through 40 years of doing it now, is to try and, say, well, actually, that's not needed. That's needed. It's like painting, well, that color spoils it. Let's not do that. And it's a process that takes time and care.
And paying attention. We've been touched on in our Advent series on paying attention. And one little exercise that we did, or I suggested that we did, which I did at least, was to listen to one song with great care, because it strikes me that, especially in the days of streaming, that it's easy just to have music as background stuff. And so I chose to listen to Chapel Porth Beach.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, yeah, I did. I mean, partly with this in mind, but I realized that I've listened to that song a number of times, many times, but not with the greatest care. And actually, when you sang that line, for a second, she wonders, was it a boy or a girl? And there's this 8-month pregnant woman saying her goodbyes because she's thinks she's about to drown. The paying attention, in the paying attention, that line just, knocked me off my feet.
That's interesting that the way you've just said that to me, because that gives me an insight into the listener, because I realize people's lives are really busy and people are trying to pay attention.
Yeah.
But that's interesting to me, that pay attention to this. I've never, that's really interesting, and that's great, because that was, for me, there were two killer lines that I wrote, or felt they were killer lines. Was that because it's true? Because I asked them all these questions, and I said, "So what did you think in that moment?" She said, "Well, I just wondered if it was a boy or a girl." And I'm joking up now, even thinking about it, you know. And then the other one was that the Atlantic Sea could have taken two lives, but it gave back three. And and when I'm playing that, I can almost hear a little gasp from the audience, and so you've kind of done the job at that point, Brian. You've made that connection, and there it is. There's humanity. That's us. That's an inexplicable, beautiful, full of questions, and occasionally some hope and faith.
There was there's a couple of lines in there as well in that song. Sometimes we fold and the answer comes when all hope is gone, somehow it arrives.
Mm,
And uh, there's that the image of the surfer going past, the mysterious surfer. And it
yeah.
just struck me as I was listening carefully that in a sense that there is both the mystery and the human agency again, like with your songwriting, and a little bit like with the journey of life and faith that you've been helping us with in terms of what is this all about, the mystery and the sense of human agency. And 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 it struck me that through that kind of artistic space that people like you have been opening up over the last couple of decades or so in terms of the spiritual journey that many of us have been on through places like Greenbelt, and the journey of deconstruction, reconstruction, brokenness, beauty, all that. um that you've played an artistic role in that.
I I think if I was aware of it, then it probably wouldn't be happening. I'm not conscious of that. I don't. It's not my goal as such. Though I'm more than delighted that it can be of use in that way. It's just me being who I am, I suppose.
Mm.
And that's someone who some days has a sense of faith and other days just can't find it. I'm kind of Thomas. Always like that guy. And I, I do get a lot of correspondence from people, and it's always a beautiful thing when that happens. And yes, right, Greenbelt itself. I wouldn't describe myself as someone who goes to church anymore. For a long time. And there's so many different sort of churches you can go to too. So that's a whole another subject. But church, the Greenbelt Festival with its wide depiction of what faith could possibly be, and the possibilities of that, and its inclusivity in that Richard Dawkins is welcome to turn up and be interviewed, which he was. We're just here to. It's a place where people can speak and not be frightened of 1 ounce of judgment,
Mm.
and be themselves. That's my idea of a beautiful faith, a beautiful space, uh, and if I'm a part of that in encouraging people to be themselves, then that is such a beautiful thing for anybody to utter, and I'm grateful. But I don't necessarily set out to do it. Having said that, I want to write songs that come alongside people exactly where they are and touch them and just say it's okay. You're not alone. It's okay. That's what I'm trying to do. So in a sense, there is a ministerial thing within that, but I don't. I don't. When I turn up at a show, I just want to make sure we have a good time, but I want to make sure we go to those tough places as well as some positive places. And I guess there is a fraction of divinity in that. Because isn't that what it's about? I was fed this big lie that if you came to faith in Jesus, everything was going to be great, and this will, and that's an old-fashioned thing these days. And I think a lot of people have moved on, but some people haven't,
Mm.
especially when I tour in North America. So
Yeah.
I'm constantly up against people saying, the weirdest of things to me, but it's like water off a duck's back these days. Um, but I think all of that is there, that that it's just that's just who I am. Am I a reluctant believer, or am I a reluctant non-believer? All of these things. There are days when I feel, or a sense of something much bigger than myself, and it's often when I've sat with powerless people in the most difficult situations, um, that I've felt that sense of the divine. It's not in any victories. It's not in any celebrations. It's often in the toughest corners of the globe, where the guitar gave me the privilege to sit with powerless people in powerless situations. And all I've done is try to give those people a bit of a voice in my own little small way. So I'm just being me, Brian. And am I a spiritual person? Yeah, I'd like to think I am, but I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to always find that place. But
Yeah.
there's a scene in Chariots of Fire where Eric Liddell is, he's running, and he does that thing where he won't run on a Sunday, even though the king wants him to, but he wins a gold medal. But just before the Olympics, his fiance, they're on a beach somewhere, and she's trying to persuade him that to go to China, because to be missionaries, and they should go now because God is calling.
Mm.
Um, and I mean, they went there eventually, and he died there. But he did run, etc. And he turns away from her and he looks out to sea, and he says, but something along the lines of, "Yes, but when I run, I feel His pleasure."
Mm.
And I feel that if pleasure is divine, is whatever. I have felt that mostly when I've sat with people in the most awful of situations, be it in the West Bank in Palestine, or in a favela above Brazil with drug barons guarding me as I sang to their kids. Uh, that's where I've felt the most, in some senses, alive, and the most senses of aware of my own inadequacies, and that, please God, there's something more than this.
Yeah. Thank you. And this is and through your work, it's earth, it's grounded, it's incarnate through your let yourself trust as well.
Yeah,
For those who haven't,
yeah,
what's that? Could you tell us just
yeah.
briefly
It's
that?
Justine and I started this, my wife, 10 years ago, with our remit. We work with small grassroots organizations anywhere on the planet, and that means Britain, or Africa, Palestine, wherever. Um, but we only work with small guys. We don't work with big organizations who have large turnovers. We find that people, it's often a husband and wife or a small group of people, they don't waste a single penny you give them. So we love that. And so we change projects every 6 months. There's no charity fatigue. So we've been going 10 years. We have 20 projects. We've worked globally in all sorts of situations, from a organization in the UK that facilitate people with severe disabilities to go to music festivals, simple as that, to working with albinism in Africa, or a children's theatre in the Ada refugee camp in the West Bank. So it's all sorts of beautiful things. And we've never had a grant off anyone. The money has only come from my audience, and we've now given away around about £700,000 across 20 different projects in the last 10 years, which is astonishing to me, and all from my beautiful audience that follow this music. Incredible.
Isn't that wonderful?
It
Thank you.
is.
I need to let you go. I just had a two or three quick fire
Yeah.
questions to end with, because I mustn't keep you. But
Okay.
the first one was that you seem to carry a reassuring willingness not to have everything sorted out, as you've talked about before. But is what do you know for sure? Is there anything that you've lived life, you've seen a lot of things. What do you know for sure?
What do I know for sure? Um, that that love is an incredibly beautiful and powerful thing. I know that for sure. I've just become a dad again at the age of 64. I'm the Ronnie Wood of folk music, and I've got this little boy called Jack, and I was just holding him in my arms before I came on to speak to you, Brian, and it's indescribable, that feeling. So I know for sure that love is tangible. It's not just some sort of scientific explanation for it. To me, it's there. I could think of other things, I'm sure, but that's the first thing that comes to mind.
Beautiful, thank you. Um, Lots of people seem, certainly, people I speak to appreciate creativity, but are afraid to release their own creativity. But it
Mm.
strikes me as such an important, beautiful process to actually express yourself and find something within it. Can you give any words of encouragement or advice for just releasing that flow, please?
I would go down the go and buy yourself a nice book, a notebook. Doesn't have to be as big as the one I've got, any size. But think of it as a sacred place, and it's just yours for nobody else's attention or whatever. I mean, if they turn into songs, whatever, that's fine. But just write down in those moments, those things that are most. They could be horrifying. They could be whatever it is. Just write it down. There's a cathartic process in that we write some things down, and then we can go back and see these signposts and look at them and say, okay, I thought that last week, but that would just be one little tip that I think that if we can actually, I don't, if you have to type it, that's okay. I love getting a pencil out and a bit of paper and writing something down, and doing that. There is a cathartic process to that can be of great use, I think, as we look at those words and what happens from there is obviously a whole different thing. But that would be my first point. Just go write it down, and look at it and feel it and live with it, and see what you write down tomorrow. It might be something completely different.
Thank you. That's wonderful. That's very inspiring. And we are an Advent community, and Christmas is coming up. As an artist, it- can I ask what Advent means to you? What it evokes when you
Yeah,
enter the season?
yeah. I I, I'm not one of those people who kind of look forward to Christmas. I I kind of like it Boxing Day. I'm just okay. It's all done. We can relax again. And that's really, as I say, I got little Jack, and I've got three beautiful grown-up kids from my first beautiful marriage, and uh, but who doesn't enjoy giving and receiving of presents and all the rest of it? So I do enjoy that moment, midnight on New Christmas Eve. I'm not, you wouldn't necessarily find me in a church or a cathedral, but I, I, it's so hard, Brian, to feel hope right now. I don't know how you feel. I'm just at my wits' end most days with the headlines and the way the world is going and the people that are seen to be gaining power. And um, so maybe the simplicity of this Christmas and its message will give me a little bit of a kick in the backside, But I do feel fairly weighed down by it all. And I can look at what Let Yourself is doing, and that gives, it's important to be reminded that the majority of people get up every day and try and walk in a straight line and do the right thing, but it only takes a few. And so it's not right that they should be dragging me down, but they do. This is one of the scariest times I've known. And I say, I look at my little boy, and I'm not going to be around, obviously, for a great part of his life. So I'm glad he's got two big brothers. But so Advent it's just that moment to pause and believe or hope in that belief, and try to for a moment be still and count the blessings that you have, and hope that those blessings can be transferred to other folk as well, and not just you.
Last thing, is there a song that you are most proud of that you think, yeah,
Oh gosh.
that's the one?
Well, there's there's
Too many to mention.
I'm proud. They're like your kids. You know, you love them, you form them, you create them, and then you send them off into the world, and you hope that they'll be of use to people, and maybe they'll come back and pay the bills when you're older. Um, but I don't know. I have a song called "Driving Her Back to London," which is about my daughter and swapping songs in our car on the way back to university. And it's really about the hope that that one generation usually gets a little better than generation before, and I'm hoping I see that young people, I feel that they're far more inclusive, more open, and more accepting than my generation is, and I feel that's natural, that's evolving things. I have great hope. That's where my hope is. Here come the young. Um, but I have a song out, well, on that same record called "Folding," and there's a lot of what I feel um, right now in that song. I've been searching for a God I cannot find, but ours is not to bargain with the divine. Uh, and faith is such. What is it? Faith is such a tenuous thing to hold. See me fade, watch me fold. I, I think those are four decent lines of honesty. And if you look hard enough, there's hope in them too.
And that's exactly what we love about you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. The current EP is Chapel Porth Beach. Your latest album is This Is What I Want to Say. You're on Patreon for anyone who wants to follow you more closely. You're on tour this winter, and I'll be seeing you at Southampton.
Great.
It's all on martynjoseph.net, and we'll put links in below for people who want to follow those up. Please follow those up. But for now, that was a very, very beautiful um, convers conversation, something beautiful to listen to for me. So on behalf of us all, Martyn,
It's a
thank
pleasure.
you very much,
It's
and
a pleasure.
God bless. Go well.
Thank you, fella.